Welcome back to Loom Keeps. Today we have the QK65 R2 and we're going to test some switches on this board. We've previously done some testing on the Owl Labs Mr.Suit, but we want to give you a chance to see what these switches sound like on a budget board like the QK65, which in fairness is a pretty fantastic board in and of itself. If you're interested in seeing the unboxing and build of the board, please check out our other video where we have shown that as well. Now, on to this. So, what we're going to be testing today is we're going to be testing the JWK Black, JWK Yellow, KTT Strawberry, and the Cherry MX Hyperglide on this board. Simply because these are a bit more budget-friendly switches, which does fit the demographic and the class of this board. And we think that actually it sounds really good, especially when it's lubed and filmed on this board. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. On the top row here, I have the switches in stock form, and in the middle row, I have them in lubed and filmed form. So on this board, this is the QK65 R2. It's built with all of the foams as well as the PE foam layer, so this will have that marbly PE sound, which to my ears I actually really enjoy. But it does have the effect of making switches sound somewhat similar, which we're going to test today to see exactly how similar that is and whether or not some of the differences do shine through. So for keycaps, we have an ASA profile keycap here. It's a pink on gray by the ACO. Really nice keycaps here as well, and we're big fans of it here. Great, so onto the switches. So over here we have the Cherry MX Hyperglides, and let's start off with the stock form. And now for lube and filmed Cherry MX Black Hyperglides. So on the stock form, the Cherry MX, there's definitely some scratch that you can hear, right? Especially on a downstroke, you can kind of hear that scratchy sound here. Do you hear that? Whereas in the lube and film version, it's still there, but it's not as apparent. So it definitely improves with the lube and film. In terms of the sound profile, the pitch of the switch also changes between the lubed and filmed and the stock form. And generally, it's quite a pleasing sound, especially with this PE foam. On to the next one, which is the JWK Black, first in stock format, and in lubed and filmed. So immediately, it's much better in clarity, I think, over the Hyperglides in terms of the lack of scratchiness, even in stock format. Right. There's no immediately audible scratch to it, and honestly it feels smoother as well. In terms of the lube and film version, the feel improves slightly. I wouldn't say it's as drastic as the Hyperglides. It does improve a little bit, but even in stock form it's already actually quite smooth to begin with. In terms of the pitch, it does change as well. With the lube and film version having kind of a more clarity of tone and kind of a more kind of thocky type of sound there. Now onto the next one, we have the JWK Yellow, starting with stock. And lubed and filmed. Very similar to JWK Black, honestly, in terms of smoothness. Both stock and lubed and film versions are very smooth. There's not much detectable scratch at all in both feel and sound, so it's very pleasant. In terms of the pitch of it, it does change with the lubed and film version. In terms of the sound profile between the two, it's actually quite similar between the black and the yellow. So starting with the stock. And lubed and filmed. In stock form, they're very similar. When you lube and film them, though, there's a slight difference in the pitch. JWK Yellow being the slightly deeper sounding switch versus the JWK Black. In terms of the feel of the switches, obviously because of the different spring weights, the yellow is going to be a slightly heavier spring than the black, but otherwise in terms of feel, they're both very smooth switches as well, and an excellent choice for a budget board like this. Lastly, we have the KTT Strawberry, which is one of the best looking switches in my opinion, but let's see how it sounds. First is stock form. And lube and filmed. In stock form, this is definitely, I think, the loudest switch out of them all, right? I'm pressing them at equal strength right now. It's got a kind of, it's got a kind of a reverberant type of clacky sound to it in the stock form. You can kind of hear it bouncing off the walls a little bit just because of the pitch of it. It's kind of a clacky sound, which some people really enjoy. When you lube and film it though, it becomes a much deeper sounding switch, so it changes drastically on the Strawberry, right? Stock, lubed. The pitch lowers significantly, and it's a very different sounding switch, so it really depends on what you're looking for. In terms of smoothness, there's no detectable hints of scratch in the sound, and in terms of the touch, even the stock form is very, very smooth, and lubed and filmed, I would say it's even smoother. If I compare against the JWKs in stock form, I think it's ever so slightly smoother, but it's not a drastic difference. In the lube and film version, it's also slightly better than the JWKs. That being said, all three of them are very smooth, and I'll put them ahead of the Cherry MX Hyperglides. In terms of sound, they're definitely very different across all four of these switches, so let's go through them really quickly. Cherry, JWK Black, JWK Yellow, KTT Strawberry. So as you can see, even though we have PE foam on this board, the switches do sound quite different and they have their own character. Now the character is modified by the PE foam sound, but it's still quite different, and in terms of people's preferences, I think you can definitely find a switch that you would prefer more than the other versus, you know, the whole, oh, all switches sound the same with PE foam. I think that's definitely not true, especially on the QK65. So in terms of the sound, I actually find this board very pleasingly sounding, and with these relatively budget switches, it's actually come off as a really nice sounding board, and it feels really, really nice. Very impressed with the QK65, honestly. I'm personally not a huge fan of the 65% layout because I like my F row, but if I were able to use a 65% layout, this would be one of my go-tos on the budget side. It's a really, really nice board so far. Looks absolutely amazing. The red is very rich, and the back, oh my god, the back is absolutely incredible. All right, for a price of $180, it's quite ridiculous how much they were able to cram into this QK65. So that's the first cut review of the QK65 with these switches on the budget line level. Next, we're going to do the QK65 with some of the premium switches that we have, such as the Oil King, Tangerines, Banana Splits, CJs, and so forth, to see, you know, what a budget level board like this would sound like with premium switches, and whether it's worth it to get premium switches on a budget level board, or should we just stick to the really nice budget switches like the JWKs and the KTT. So if you're interested, please do subscribe and follow us, and you'll get to see more of this content. If you have any more suggestions for us, please do leave us comments below. We definitely read them, and we'll respond to you accordingly. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Keyboard on.